Hello Year 1 and welcome to this history lesson. Last week we learned a lot about Victorian inventions, but today we're going to be learning about something slightly different. We're going to learn about Victorian toys, which should be a subject you know lots about because you know lots about toys. So before we do that, I want us to think about last week for a little while. So last week we learned about Victorian inventions, and I just wanted to show you some of these fantastic pictures that came through last week. So up here you can see a picture of a vacuum cleaner and toilet roll and a radio with Annabelle and her little brother there. Fantastic. We've got another bike there, which was also Mr. Oliver's favourite invention. Chloe's showing the camera, which obviously has changed a lot. The Victorian camera wasn't quite as small as that one there. And we've got Isla down here showing us very nicely the toilet. And the toilet had already been invented, but it was slightly changed by the Victorians. Can you remember what they changed? Yep, they added a flush to it, which was very important. I heard lots of people saying it would have been a bit stinky in their houses if they didn't have the flush. And we've got some more lovely pictures here. Erica and Kavish showing that they're holding a phone, which was also invented during the Victorian times. Obviously, they have changed a lot over time, and now they even include things like cameras, and we can use the internet on them. So that is something that's changed a lot. The radio shown by Augustus here, lovely. I can see just down here, there's some stamps as well, which is fantastic. Another invention, which we found out a lot about, was that Victorians changed the post system quite a lot. They invented stamps, and they also invented the post box, which originally was the colour green, well done, and it then was changed to red like the post boxes that we see today. Lovely pictures of lots of toilet roll everywhere. Bianca and Sophia there, and Rufus holding a Hoover there as well. William down here showing a very popular Victorian invention. Everybody mentioned that they loved chocolate eggs, so they were thankful for that. So well done to the Victorians for making chocolate eggs. Can you remember the other sweet item they made? Jelly beans. And someone even mentioned ice cream as well, which came out at the same sort of time. And again, we've got the bike down here, and Hoover. Is there any others that we haven't mentioned? The pram as well, lovely, 2 prams here. So lots and lots of Victorian inventions in your houses still today. So it shows how important those inventions have been for Britain and for people all over the world. So well done to everyone for sending in your lovely pictures. It was really nice to see all of those inventions in your houses. And today we're going to move on to think about Victorian toys. So before we think about the Victorian toys, I want to think about toys today. What toys do you have at home? How many different toys do you have? Maybe you can speak to a sibling or an adult about different toys that you have. And then what we'd like you to do is to take a pen and paper, or a pencil and paper, and write down the answers to these questions. You don't have to write in full sentences, but just write, what are your favourite toys to play with? What do you like about them? How do you play with them? And how do they work? So maybe just speak about your favourite toys. So choose one toy that you like the most, or you like the most at the moment, and tell us all about what that toy is like. After you've done that, you can then ask an adult, what was their favourite toy? How did it work? How did they play with it? And what did they like about that toy? I'm sure your adults have lots of toys that they played with when they were younger, and they can think about what one was their favourite. It might be nice for them to remember their favourite toy as well. So you can pause the video now and you can ask those questions to an adult, and then you can write down your answers. You don't have to write in full sentences, and then you can come back to the video. Okay, I hope you had fun asking those questions, and I hope the adults also enjoyed remembering their toys from when they were younger as well. I've looked at these pictures and remembered some of the toys that I had. I definitely had these Pokemon cards here, and I had this Game Boy here, and my sister had this Furby. So there's lots and lots of things that I'm remembering as well. So here's a little timeline of some of the toys that have been around through the last 200 years. We're going to start from this end, which says your toys. Now, some of these toys are quite familiar, things like the iPad that I'm sure we've all had a go on because we've had a go in school, and some of you may even have tablets or iPads at home. And then we've got things like games consoles, which would be things like the Xbox or PS4s, PlayStations, or Nintendo Switches, all of those different electronic games that you use and video games. And then this looks to me a little bit like an Elsa doll, even though she's got the wrong colour hair from Frozen, but things like the Elsa dolls that you might play with, or any other action figures that you play with at home. So these are all toys that are familiar to you. Now, before your toys were your parents' toys. So just like you asked earlier about your parents' toys. Now, your parents might recognise some of these, like this one here, which was called a Polly Pocket, which my sister had. You might remember some of these toys. If you are, the adults might remember some of these toys. And these toys were probably out around 20 to 30 years ago. If you go even further back and ask your grandparents about their toys, they might mention toys like the early Lego toys or the Etch-a-Sketch here. What do you notice that's changed now that we've got to your grandparents' toys? If we look at this toy in your parents' time and these toys in your time, they're all electronic. There's a lot of electronic toys. But in your grandparents' time, there probably weren't any electronic toys. You can see there's no electronic toys here. Now, if we go back even further, just after the Victorian age, we had toys like the teddy bear. And I think it was mentioned in the video last week that the teddy bear was invented 1 year after the Victorian age. So 1 year after Queen Victoria died, the teddy bear came out. And shortly after that, so did the crayons. Crayons came out. They were invented, made from wax, to be able to have at school or at home, to be able to colour in, and they're still used today. We've used them at school before, so they're a very, very important toy that's been used for a long, long time. And you can see in the middle, there's a motorbike there. Now that motorbike is made out of something called Meccano, which is a type of metal. It's a little bit like Lego where you have to fit the pieces together, but instead you make them out of metal, and that was very popular just after the Victorian age. Now, if we go back 200 years to the Victorian age, we can see that toys were quite different. Now we've got here a little tea set, so maybe you might have a tea set at home that's still quite a popular toy to play like you've got a kitchen, or maybe have a little tea party with your teddies. And down here also we have a little model of Noah's Ark as well. And you're going to find out all about that in this next video. So let's find out a little bit more about Victorian toys.
Remember, Victorian times happened in England during the period of Queen Victoria's reign from 1837 to 1901. So, what did Victorian children play with? They didn't have electronics or plastics like we do today. Rich children had wooden rocking horses, doll houses, and elegant porcelain dolls. Poor children would have played with simple dolls made of wood or cloth. There were educational toys like toy trains, and simple toys like the ball and cup. The Victorians played with cards and board games like snakes and ladders, which are still popular today. Outdoors, a common toy was a hoop rolled with a stick. Victorian children also skipped rope, and played sports like badminton and a new sensation, bicycle riding. On Sundays, children were only allowed to play with toys like Noah's Ark because it was related to the Bible.
Okay, I hope that you enjoyed that video. And we saw lots of those toys that we spoke about earlier coming up in that video. So let's go back to our slides and just have a look back at some of those toys that came up, like the Noah's Ark toy that we spoke about. Can you remember when they played with the Noah's Ark toy? Yes, they played with those on Sunday, and that was because Sunday was a day that was supposed to be religious, and they were supposed to be thinking about God during those days. So they would, on a Sunday, play with only educational toys that were related to Christianity. So things like playing with a Noah's Ark was always a popular choice. But probably, if you were a poor child, you might not have a fancy set of Noah's Ark like that, or some of those other toys like the dolls' houses and things. There were a lot of family games that were mentioned in that video as well, and we're going to have a go today at playing one of those. So you'll see here that we have the game Snakes and Ladders, and last week you had a go at this in maths. Snakes and Ladders was inspired by an ancient Indian game, and the British people began to play the board game Snakes and Ladders in about 1892. This game is still enjoyed by families today. So we would like you to have a go at playing this game with your family and think about, how is playing this game different from some of the games that you might play now? Maybe something that you have on your iPad, or a game that you would play on your computer. How is this game different? What does it feel like to play this game with your family? Now, I've attached in the activity this version of Snakes and Ladders for you to play, and it's got the rules down the side there, so you can have a go at that. And you can even, if you don't have dice at home, it even has a part where you can attach, where you can make your own dice just by printing it off if you have a printer. If not, you can have a go at making your own board at home as well. Another game that you could try this week at home is hopscotch. Now, you might have played this before, and Victorian children didn't have all of the electronic items we have, so they would often play outside and play games together with their friends. Now, you could have a go at this one with your family at home. Now, we don't have to use an iPad for this or computer. We can just use chalk, or you can use pieces of paper and pen to write down on the floor, not on your wooden floor at home, but you can write down on paper and then put it on your wooden floor. All these different numbers from 1 up to 10, and you have to lay them out just like this, and then you have to throw something. You can choose what item you'd like to throw. It could be a beanbag if you have that, or a stone, or it could be something like a rolled up pair of socks, whatever you have at home. You throw it onto a number and you hop and jump to that number. You can have a go at that at home and tell us how you got on. You can also send us any pictures of any of the activities that you've been doing at home as well. And we would love to hear all about your toys that you spoke about earlier in the lesson, and your adults or your parents' toys as well would be fantastic. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and next week we'll learn even more about Victorian toys, and then we'll be moving back to look at Queen Victoria after that. Have a lovely day and have lots of fun. Bye.